Hello, welcome back to the Movie Reviewers 100. My name is Scott, and today I'd like to talk to you about a new release in theaters called Alien Covenant. I'm sure many of you have seen this movie already, but if you haven't, I'd like to tell you a little bit about what I thought of it. And if you have seen it already, of course, maybe you'd be interested anyway. I don't know. So Alien Covenant is directed by Ridley Scott, who directed the first Alien film in 1979 and then took a break from Alien movies for quite a while, finally going and directing Prometheus in 2012. And this movie, Alien Covenant, is pretty much a direct sequel to Prometheus. Prometheus and this movie both take place before the original Alien film with Sigourney Weaver and Tom Skerritt and Ian Holm, and John Hurt, of course, as Kane, the guy who has that thing come out of his chest. So these events are basically essentially supposed to lead into the first Alien movie, but I really don't know how that's going to work with the characters in the first movie finding an alien that was a victim of they found another humanoid species that was the victim of an alien. This space traveler strapped into the chair of its spacecraft, this sort of like horseshoe shaped craft, and had a hole in its chest because an alien had burst out of it. So eventually that's supposed to happen, but it just seems kind of unlikely at this point, given how things are playing out. Maybe they'll figure out some way to connect them more specifically in a third prequel. I don't know. As an Alien film all by itself, it wasn't bad. It was pretty good, actually. One of the more satisfying Alien films I've seen since the first two, Alien and then Aliens from '86, James Cameron's best filming. I actually did a review of Aliens on my personal channel last week. And one thing that I was sort of struck by was how sort of tacked on the last confrontation is between Sigourney Weaver and the Alien Queen. There's like an extra confrontation scene contains that famous line of dialogue that, you know, most people, if it's not Game Over, Man, Game Over by Bill Paxton, then everyone quotes the other one. That seems to be the two most popular quotes from Aliens. Anyway, like that one, this movie also seems to have like an extra scene that really sort of doesn't work logically, but up until that point, it's actually very, very strong. Technically, the movie is all aces. Every once in a while, I see a film that really sort of stands out as being technically marvelous. In 2006, when I watched Children of Men, I thought, wow, this is the most technically impressive movie I've seen yet. You know, I mean, it's everything as far as the graphics go is just seamless. And with Alien Covenant, it also is very, very impressive as far as the integration of the visual effects, not just the alien creatures, which look mostly CGI to me, but also in the spacecrafts and the, you know, obviously there's a lot of manipulation of environments, people walking around on the surface of this planet they've never been before. There could be quite a lot of digital work done on these shots, but you'd never know just to look at it. It's all very, very seamless and great looking, and so this may be one of the most technically impressive, if not the most technically impressive film that I've ever seen at this point. Of course, it might end up being surpassed by something else somewhere down the line. In fact, that's probably pretty likely. So yeah, as far as the craft goes, it's all very, very good. A little bit about the story. We have a ship that's basically transporting colonists, 2,000 of them in suspended animation, plus they have embryos that are meant to be grown once they arrive there. And the crew aboard the ship that's transporting them is responsible for taking care of them and making sure everything runs well on the ship. They're all in suspended animation, but then there's an accident, basically a malfunction, and there's some bad stuff happening. Some of the crew members die. There's some damage to the ship. And so once they fix it, then they receive a transmission from a nearby planet, which seems to indicate that there is people there, and that there's actual natural, you know, life there. There's vegetation, water, oxygen, everything like that. And the captain of the ship, played by Billy Crudup, says, instead of traveling another 7 years to this other planet, which we think will be able to, support life, we have evidence that this one actually does, and they're right close by. We can get there, very much quicker. I don't think any of us wants to go into suspend animation again and hibernation for another 7 years to get to a planet that might be good. And the main character of the movie is another crew member of the ship named, I think, Davies. She's played by Kate Waterston, who was in Inherent Vice. She played Joaquin Phoenix's ex-girlfriend. And she says, I don't know, something about this is fishy. It just seems too good to be true. And they're like, no, we ought to explore this other thing right here. There might be people there, already. We'll see. So they divert the ship to this other planet, get in a landing craft. There's 3 crew members that remain behind in the main part of the ship, but the landing craft goes down to the surface to check the place out, and of course that's when the trouble begins. I don't want to get too much into spoilers here, but yeah, they encounter some vicious creatures, there's some alien attacks. We learn a little bit more about what happened with the characters that survived Prometheus, and what went on with them in the intervening period of time. I think they said there's about 10 years that passed between Prometheus and this movie. And I'm not sure whether or not that's actually 10 years since the crew of the Covenant left Earth, or 10 years from that particular point, because they've been traveling for a while, and they were due to travel for another 7 years, so I'm a little vague on that, but fundamentally maybe it doesn't even matter. Anyway, like I said, most of what this movie consists of is actually really good, and for the most part I was quite satisfied with it and found it exciting and visually stunning, and the acting is all really good. But then we get to the ending, which seems to really force one last big confrontation between the remaining human characters, because some of them do get killed, and a xenomorph and an alien, that's the famous creature, from the original movies. And a couple problems with it, like, first of all, they're in this location and there's no real explanation as to how the alien got there in the first place. It just doesn't seem possible. It seems quite absurd, actually, that it should wind up there. And the other thing is, one of the characters ends up getting wounded in a very specific and very obvious visual place, a very apparently visual place, and then the wound just kind of vanishes. It wouldn't have healed. It just disappears, and that's not cool. That's a big oversight right there. Yeah, there's some other things that I had. Most of my issues with the movie all come within like the last 15 minutes, around that final confrontation between, like I said, the survivors and the alien that they have to contend with. Excuse me, my throat's pretty dry. So, I would like to recommend this movie up to a point, and say up to this point it's really good, and it's quite satisfying. It's nothing like groundbreaking, but it's very, very well made, and it's certainly, an exciting experience. But then, with this last portion of the storyline, there are all kinds of logical problems that are raised, and some of them become apparent pretty quickly. It isn't like you think about it afterwards and go, hey, wait a minute, how did that happen? No. These were things that I was thinking while I was watching the movie. I'm like, this just isn't possible. I mean, I know that we're dealing with science fiction here, but, there's certain rules that are established, and those rules are just sort of ignored in favor of, one more scare, one last scare. So, all in all, I have to say I can't really recommend the movie because of that big problem with the ending right there. Unfortunately, yeah, I can't recommend that one. And I really didn't like Prometheus that much either, but for very, very different reasons. Prometheus was just a mess. It was just very, very confusing, and I really wasn't into it. And the whole thing seemed geared towards a setup for something that doesn't happen in this movie. You've got the 2 remaining characters that survive Prometheus. They go off on a journey to get answers, and, all that is sort of ignored. I think they wanted to just make a more conventional alien picture with people, getting impregnated with alien creatures, and then having to deal with the, survivaling and survivaling isn't a word, sorry about that. But, yeah, I think they wanted to make a more conventional Alien picture, and, they probably succeeded in satisfying some people, but, yeah, big problem with the ending, real big problem with the whole end set piece of the film. So, yeah, can't recommend it. I'm really sorry about that. I am going to see if I can't review another new movie next week on this day, so keep an eye out for that. Please subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. Our Facebook page is linked below as well. You can leave comments here, comments on the Facebook page, any feedback you want to give us, maybe suggestions for future reviews. I'm focusing more on movies that are coming out just in the theater, so, but if there's something specific you'd like, that would be great. I'd love to hear about it. So thank you for watching, and we'll see you again real soon. Next week, in fact, on this very day. Bye.